Hello superheroes, welcome to my channel. I'm Scarlet Grace from Seraph.com. I'm a manifestation coach and today's video is all about a topic that seems to be confusing many people. Living from the end and acting as if your desire has already manifested in order for it to manifest. So is living from the end the same thing as acting as if? Make sure to watch this video until the end to find out. Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to talk about acting as if, living from the end, and what the difference is between those two. By the way, if you're new to this channel and you want to learn how to easily and joyfully manifest all of your desires, then make sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon, because I put out new videos every single week to help you manifest all your desires and create a life beyond your wildest dreams. Alright, so let's talk about living in the end. Living in the end is a concept that comes from Neville Goddard. If you haven't heard of Neville Goddard before, he was an actor, dancer and spiritual teacher from the Barbados who gave lectures in New York and Los Angeles for decades up until the early 70s. Neville believed that the human imagination is God and that we can create absolutely anything we desire in the physical world through the use of our imagination. But let's get back to living in the end. If you haven't heard the concept of living from the end before, here's what it is. You start with a desire. Say you want a new job, for example, a trip to Iceland, or a specific person. What you need to do first is think of a scene that for it to happen, for that scene to happen, it would require for your desire to have already happened. For example, for the new job, such a scene could be this. The phone rings, and you pick it up, and it's your brother who's calling to congratulate you on the new job. For the trip to Iceland, the scene could be you looking at a photo you posted on Facebook from your trip to Iceland last week, and how many people have commented that it looks awesome and that they want to visit Iceland too. For a specific person you want to be in a relationship with, the scene could be you two being on vacation together and sitting at the beach at night holding hands. None of those scenes could happen unless your desire, the new job, the trip to Iceland, the relationship with that specific person had manifested first. Then, what you do is you saturate your subconscious mind with that scene by getting into a relaxed, meditative or trance state. Neville calls this a state akin to sleep, and playing your imaginal scene in your mind over and over until it feels real. Like something that has truly happened to you. Now when you get to that point of feeling that your scene has already happened and feeling all the feelings you would have felt if it had already happened, at that moment when doing this, when experiencing your scene as real, you're living from the end. So the idea of living in the end is that when you're done with your imaginal session, you go on with your life. But instead of operating from the version of you that you were before you did your imaginal session, instead of operating from the version of you that wants this desire to manifest, but it hasn't manifested yet, you operate from the version of you that already has experienced this desire manifesting. The version of you from your imaginal scene that already experienced this desire manifesting. Otherwise, it couldn't have experienced that scene of looking at that Facebook photo from the trip to Iceland, or the congratulatory phone call for the new job, or the holding hands with your specific person at the beach while on vacation with him. So living from the end is living from that belief and that feeling that you'd have if your desire had already manifested. And if you do that, then your desire will manifest. Now, the way to do this is mostly an inner state that is present. So, for example, the old version of you would stress over whether you'll ever get together with your specific person. The new version of you, though, the one that's living from the end, knows that you are already together. So the thoughts you have are from that place of being together already, not from a stressed out place of wondering if it's ever going to happen or feeling insecure or any of that. The you that's living from the end, of having an amazing new job, Won't be looking sadly at all the things at the grocery store you can't buy because you're living on ramen noodles since you haven't had a job for a while. The you that's living from the end is living from, I may be only buying ramen today, but I'll get my first paycheck from my awesome new job soon, so let's have a look for things I'll buy soon now that I can afford them. So in that sense, living from the end is basically acting as if your desire has already manifested. Here's where it gets confusing though, and where many people mess it up. As I said already, living from the end is an inner state more than it is a series of physical actions. But many people take living from the end or acting as if to mean that they need to physically act exactly as they would if their desire had already manifested. So if their desire is to be in a relationship with a specific person, for example, they will wonder if they should go up to them and kiss them or start calling them daily to talk about their day. Or if it's money or a new job they want, they think that living from the end or acting as if means they need to start buying stuff they can't afford yet for the money to manifest. Here's the thing that you need to understand. Just because if your desire had already manifested, you would be able to do certain things, that doesn't mean that you have to actually go and do them physically for you to be living in the end. If your specific person is someone you barely know, you most definitely can't start kissing them out of the blue and acting as if you're dating. In your mind, you should be living from the end of you being in a relationship, but in the physical world, it takes a bit of time for what you're imagining to actually manifest. So if you go up to your new coworker you want to be in a relationship with and start kissing him and asking him if you took out the trash today because in your imagination you're already together as a couple and you're living together, he's just going to think you're legitimately crazy. Living from the end in that case would be not feeling worried about whether you'll become a couple or not because you know you are already a couple. It's not acting physically as if you're a couple when you're not. If you're manifesting money, then living in the end is looking at stuff you couldn't afford in the past and feeling the joy of being able to afford them now. It's not walking into a store to buy a new car and get yourself even more deeply in debt just to prove that you're living in the end. It's an inner state, not a series of physical actions that you need to take to be living in the end. Sure, sometimes there may be corresponding actions that feel natural and a part of the chain of events that needs to take place for your desire to manifest. But those actions are never the kind of actions that will get you deep in debt or make someone think you're crazy because you're pretending to be their girlfriend or spouse when you barely know them. Let me give you an example from Neville's life. Neville got drafted into the army and he wanted out. He had already asked to be discharged, but they rejected it. Here's what he says about how he manifested being discharged from the army. I was drafted into the army during World War II, but I wanted no part of it. When my request for a discharge was disapproved, I did not get angry and try to go over the colonel's head. Instead, I lay down on my army cot, closed my eyes to the other 50 men in the room and imagined I was 2,000 miles away in my apartment above Washington Square in New York City. Placing myself on my bed, I saw my wife sleeping in hers. Then I rose and looking out the window, I saw the holy apartments across the street and Washington Square down below. Turning, I walked into the living room, dining room and the kitchen. I felt familiar objects and brought as many of my 5 senses alive in the drama as possible. At 4 o'clock in the morning, I awoke hearing a voice say, "That which I have done, I have done. Do nothing." Who spoke those words? I did, but I heard them as coming from without. Knowing what I had done and what I had said, I walked in faith for 9 days, doing nothing on the outside. On the 10th day, the colonel who had rejected my application called me into his office and gave me an honorable discharge. I brought feeling up to the state of vision. By feeling the bed and the various objects in the apartment, I fell asleep feeling the joy of being there. The colonel thought he initiated the desire to discharge me, but he had no choice in the matter. I imagined, knowing the world was my imagination pushed out, and everyone in it had to do what they are doing to aid the birth of what I had done. Knowing what you ought to do is not good enough. You must raise your imagination to the state of vision in order for the act to be committed. Then, what must you do? Nothing. You simply watch the series of events unfold within your world. Remember, you operate your creative power. It does not operate itself. There must be action, a commitment on your part. Nothing, however, can be done to earn God's gift of grace. When God's promise fulfills itself, it happens suddenly and so dramatically that you have no time to think about it. In fact, you will not even recognize it unless you hear it from someone who has experienced it. I know, as far as I'm concerned, I never heard it from a man or saw the Bible story as relating to me. But I know from experience that the truth comes through an act of God and self-revelation. For God is hidden in the mind of man and unveils himself as man. So those are Neville's words describing how he got honorably discharged from the army. Any desire, in order to manifest, follows a natural progression. You may not know how it's going to manifest. It may come in the most surprising ways, but it will always follow a progression that makes some kind of sense in the physical, 3D world. This means that if you imagine today that you already have a specific job, you can't walk into that office tomorrow acting as if you work there and everyone will find it natural and normal. You still have to interview for the job and wait for them to tell you that you're hired. This means that if you want to marry the new co-worker, you can't start physically acting as if you're already married and living together and you'll find this natural and normal. You still need to go on a first date and then a second and then get to the point where you're definitely together and then you have to propose, so they have to propose, etc. You may know in your mind that your end result is already a done deal, that it's guaranteed. You may internally be living from that reality of your end goal having already manifested, but in the external world, you have to play along and act in a way that's natural and normal for the stage you're currently in. So if you haven't been on a date with that co-worker yet, but you're at the stage where you've been flirting with each other, then keep doing that. Then, when you first go on a date, you will do the stuff that's natural and normal for people who are on a first date. All the while, you internally keep living from the end, keep knowing that your end goal with that person has already happened, but in the external world, you still have to do things in a way that look normal and accept that some things need time to come to full fruition. Just because you fully immersed yourself into the scene of you and your co-worker being married, it doesn't mean that he's going to drop to one knee tomorrow at lunch and propose when he barely knows your name right now. For big manifestations, and by big I don't mean difficult, I mean manifestations where you're several stages away from your fulfilled desire, there's always going to be a chain of events that takes place. You don't need to make plans or take physical action for that to happen. The chain of events is not your business to figure out. It happens by itself if you imagine correctly and internally leave from the end. But there will often be a physical part for you to do, and that's play along and act naturally throughout this chain of events. I hope this helped you clarify in your mind what living from the end is and how to act as if your desire has already manifested without getting yourself in trouble or messing things up instead. If you like this video, then please give it a thumbs up, share it so that other people can also benefit from it, and if you haven't already, then hit the subscribe button and the bell icon because I put out new videos every Sunday to help you manifest an amazing life. Thank you so much for watching.